rake has got a flat tire. So I pumped it up a few times and it just goes, yeah, it still holds a little bit of air, but that's not good enough. And when they start looking like that, then it's time to figure that, just change it, because we have a few spare. I already changed this side. This one worked fine. I did that in the Bead bazooka video. That's the rim I was working with, and the tire I was using was bad, but I found a different one, and I put this one on there, and this one's good. So let's get one, put it on here. Okay, so I mentioned before, this tractor is a piece of junk because the engine oil is leaking out of the bell housing. That means the crank seal blew and the oil just leaks out there. This thing only has 4,000 hours on it. This tractor is a piece of junk. That's 400. That's even stupider. This thing was not built to last 2 seconds. So, 3 dogs. See, this tripod is like a cheap piece of junk. It's bending, but I think this is like, that was free actually. It just came from junk that was at the other property. This thing is better than a $50 to $100 tripod. Because all I did was get an angle iron. I think it's a pretty genius design. An angle iron, I cut threads in there so the bolt goes through everything. And then I welded a nut or a bolt on there so there's threads. And this thing attaches to the threads. And then this is the part off of that expensive tripod. So if you can remove this part, then you could put that on anything you want. That's a standard type of threads. So I think that works better than a $50 tripod. These jacks are not meant for lifting really heavy stuff. And that's what I did, and I think it kind of destroyed it. Doesn't work very well now. Works, but not very good. Usually only happens to semi tires. I can almost tear that whole chunk off by hand. Yeah, the treads are not even on the tire. It's like there's rubber under that. So this tire is just a cheapy tire, I guess. There's piles of tires in a few places, but yeah, my uncle just found a bunch on the side of the road. One of these will be, one of these is the same size. Now these are car or truck tires. With a farm machine, it doesn't matter what tire you use, whether it's a car tire, truck tire. Could be a reason someone dumped these, because they don't hold air. Another thing you want to look for is if the bead is all cracked up here. Like this tire, the bead is all broken right there.
So this is a junk tire.
This one fits. So now we have 2 tires. Also, another thing you want to look for if you're trying to recycle old tires is if they're all cracked up on the sides. See, something like this, where it's cracked on the sides like that. You see there's just a bunch of cracking. This tire is probably too far gone, but no, I don't know. It could still hold it, so keep that one there. Now you have a pair of them, one to replace the tire on the rake and one to put on the spare rim. These are my 2 favorite tools. They're so useful. good time to check the wheel bearing. Make sure it's not like loose or any play. That, I think that's normal. But it's not going like that. It's just going in and out a bit. So that bearing should be fine. Got to take the valve out and make sure you don't lose it because it's small. And if there's pressure in the tire, you want to make sure that's unscrewed and then grab it. Grab it so that it doesn't go flying out and you lose it. This valve is still good, so we'll save that. Sometimes you'd want to replace that. But now there shouldn't be any extra pressure in there. The tire looks good all around except for that one just huge rip in it. So this is junk. These flowers everywhere. My aunt was making jam from the flowers or something, or jelly. So, putting the tripod in this box. That's a pretty good place for it. It doesn't even have a nut on it. You just put it in the hole, and then this thing won't move. See if we can use the bead braking mechanism here to get the bead off. I mean, these car tires are generally pretty easy to work with. See, that bead's off. So that means the tire is not stuck to the rim here. The bottom one's almost off. That bead is off on both sides. The bead is stuck on the bottom somehow again. junk tire, so I'll put it with the other junk tires. And Bead's a little rusty, so we'll clean that. So I gotta suck the water out of the middle there. There's a guy on YouTube that pumps out septic tanks. He makes videos about it. I feel like I'm doing his job or something. That was satisfying. He's sucking all the water out of tires. These tires have been sitting outside for a long time, so I want to make sure the beads are clean. I actually expect you to use this end. I don't think it works very well. Really, it doesn't. It's hard to get that in there. But that's what I like about these smaller car tires, is they're flexible, so they're less likely to damage the bead. You still have to be gentle with them, though. See, I'm kneeling so that see, there's a bump like that. And so this side has got to go under that bump. So I just kneel on this like that, so the bead of the tire goes in the center of the rim. That makes it a lot easier to get that on. Like that. And now we got to use that bead bazooka. That's the fun part. Using that to inflate that. So it goes on there. I feel like the tire doctor. And I don't really care which side. These tires look like they're the same. The treads don't go like that. They're the same whatever direction the tire is. So these tires can be put on, it looks like they can be put on either direction. If you can afford it, always get the power version of this, because power version, or the air, whatever it runs off of, is so much easier than these manual ones. And they're also nicer to the tires. So that too. The power, what do you call them? The powered tire machines are nicer to the tires. These car tires are pretty easy to work with. So that's working pretty good this time. Oh, it's damaging it. You gotta push this down. It kind of doesn't really work without doing that. Now it's Bead bazooka time. Plug the compressor and to give it the time to charge up. It's starting to rain. Now normally when you're using one of these you want a respirator, but the first tire I did was a little bit dusty. The second one, there really wasn't any dust at all, but I don't have a respirator. That's why I wasn't wearing one. So this one is the spare rim. This one's the one that I took off. Let's put the valve back in. From this angle, those tires look brand new. The compressor might come on, because it's at its full pressure, so it turns off, and then plug this in and then hit it. I already charged up the Bead bazooka with air. At around 75 psi. That didn't work, so let's get an old tire. So what you want to do is hammer with a mallet on the bottom of the rim. So the valve is on the other side. This side's on a little bit. Okay, so I think I achieved what I wanted. So, see this side of the bead, you can see it, it's barely touching. That might be enough for it to catch air from the bead bazooka. And I charged it to around 120 psi. That's pretty good. This thing has a leak, but put that on there. So I think it might work now. You know, sometimes you can't hammer it, but I think this might work. So I need to lift it up and move it. I don't want it to pull apart, so. So that rim is it's not falling down. That means that other edge should be on there, at least a little bit, so. Let's try it now, it might work. So the bead should be touching on the bottom. That means when I shoot air in here, it should pop everything out. Thing shoot out. No, I had it under control. But just, you gotta be careful with this. One thing I'm gonna do, I need to cut these legs off, because sometimes, after the first time I used it, it kind of caught my leg. It just bumped my leg and it hurt a little bit. So, those legs need to come off, I think. At least the front ones. I think that worked. Yeah, maybe it did work. Compressor's not turning on though. I feel it's got pressure in there. Not very much. But I think it's working. Stand back a bit, that needs to pop. The bead needs to pop on the rim. It should be. So I can see, it's hard to tell on camera, but there's a really small little like bead line, little line. And the rim is up to the line, it's not under anywhere weird. So it's on this side, it's got pressure. If it keeps its pressure, it should be a good tire. It looks like it might be, see the bead might be under just a little bit there. It's kind of hard to tell. But there's soap around and I don't see any like bubbling. You know, there's little white bubbles, but any like excessive bubbling. Oh, look at that. Here's a little bit of a leak right there. That's what a leak looks like. It's pretty small though. So that might go away. When I did the other tire, it had a leak. And the air went out of it. It was bubbling. And then I pumped it up again and put it on there, and it fixed itself. Stopped leaking. So if we should buy some bead stuff at Princess Auto. You know, it's like solution for sealing beads. That might help. Because when you're working with old farm rims, can't trust them. So I'll just leave this over here. See if it keeps its pressure. Does it lose it slowly, or see what happens to it. And now let's do the same thing to that one. Okay, so what I'm gonna do differently this time, I'm gonna spray a bit of soap water in there before the bead is sealed. And we'll see if that helps it a bit. Water in the other side and then I hammered it. That soapy water did a much better job. So I recommend you put soapy water on the bead and then hammer on it with a mallet. And it's like sealed all over here, and it's, you know, it's not, the bead's not on, but it is sealed enough so that when I charge air into here, it'll inflate the way it should. That one worked first try. Okay, so the soapy water when you put the soapy water in there before you start hammering on it with the mallet, that works so much better. I should have done that to the other one, because it helps it slip on. You know, it looks like it's on everywhere it should be. Don't see, it's still moist around the bead. I don't see any active bubbling. I mean, there might be a little bit, but I mean, these tires have been sitting outside. I don't know the story on them. They're not brand new. Actually, they still have little hairs on them, so these tires may be only a year or two old. But I think that worked. So I'm glad I made that bead bazooka. That's, you know, I don't know what those are brand new, but I recycled an old compressor. And my uncle bought that compressor brand new like 40 years ago. So this one works. I think the other one's working too. I cut a little too far. There's a bit of a gouge. Not all the way through, but I'm gonna put a bead of weld on that anyway. So I'm welding on a tank. I want there to be no pressure buildup. So both valves are open. I don't know why there's oil in there somewhere. I guess it might be a little bit of oil in this tank. This is an air compressor tank, so that doesn't really make sense, but I guess there's oil in there. If anybody out there is looking for a really good car, I recommend a Toyota Matrix, or whatever this thing is. But this thing, when you're driving it, it's really good and visible. So when you're driving it, you can see really well in front of you. A lot of cars, you're seeing that the whole time. You can't see anything because the way they're designed, and you can see at the back really easily. So this thing is kind of like the Isuzu Trooper. Well, it's not, but it's one of those really good cars that I'm pretty sure Toyota stopped making these because they were so good. And this is a two-wheel drive version. It's a front-wheel drive. They do make them 4x4 or all-wheel drive. I don't know what it is, but they come with all-wheel drive. And these things have lots of room in the back. It's like a little Jeep. This is a pretty good design of car. This is anti-spatter. Keeps things nice. I find sometimes it helps things weld a little bit too. I don't think that is going to be a problem. Should be fine. So now when I'm holding this to do a bead, if this thing goes back, it's not gonna like bump my leg anywhere weird. I can just support it like that, and then I got it here, so if it goes back, it'll just do that. That's what I want. Ooh, all the puppies are here. This might be useful for something. We'll save that. These puppies. Hey, Sophie, you like being a mom? Is that your daughter? 3 females, and that's the 1 male. They have names, but I don't remember their names. How's this tire doing? I've still got pressure. This one, it's leaking in one little spot. That could be on the rim. See if that goes away. So, since these tires match, they're the same tires on each rim, I may as well put them both on and keep that one as a spare. And then we're not going to use it right now. We're going to use the rake in a few days. So put the tires on there, and with the weight of the rake, we'll see, how it holds up. Look at that. They're play fighting. sometimes this jack doesn't release, so what you have to do is this. You got to stand back. This jack is worn out. Puppies are gone. See if these work. They should, but you never know. I want to make sure that it works. I have a small feeling this one might go flat. But they shouldn't. No, if they go flat, they go flat. It's like a day later, and none of my tires have gone any flatter. No, the reason they're bulging is just because these are car tires. They're probably not meant to hold the weight of this rake. No, that rake is not too light. I mean, it's fine, but so these tires should be okay. So I guess that wraps up this video.